Larry, it's great to see you again. It is never a dull moment. I mean, there's like one thing right after another. Good Lord.
It's always silly season in Sacramento. And couple that with the election, it's a crazy year.
Yeah, we've got to, it's this. You would have thought that now that the legislature's out, right? They're gone. They're out campaigning. They're all doing their stuff. That things would have slowed down a bit. But I mean, had the governor had the special session to go and impose some new regulations on refineries, which in the end will end up increasing gas prices. But they're out there saying no, it's not going to do so. Now you have it's a state agency called the California Air Resource Board that is making, over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, they've just been making all the headlines. And I know it's hard for people to kind of grasp, what this board is, what it does, but it is a state board that is appointed by the governor. I believe that there's either 12 or 14 different positions, and out of those, I think it's 10 or 12 that are appointed by the governor. The other one is appointed by the Senate, and the other one's by the Assembly, the leaders of each one. So really, the governor controls that entire board.
Right.
Now, I think the important thing to realize with this board is that the governor has the ability to appoint whoever he wants or remove them. He could sign a letter tomorrow saying, "I am replacing 9 of the board members with these 9 people," or I'm just removing them, and I will appoint someone in the near future. He's got that ability. He's done it before in other boards that he gets to appoint, and it has just been, like I said, over this last week and a half, you've got this board that is going to take a vote in November, a couple of days right after the election, and the proposal is to go on and increase its low carbon fuel standards. It's this regulation that is going to lead to about 47 to about 60 cents per gallon of gasoline higher. And you've got some great reporters. You've got Ashley Zavala. You've got other folks that have just been asking questions. Why are you going to vote on this? What is the impact going to be? Because now the board of the California Resource Board has decided to say, well, we've pulled down our estimate. It was just an estimate. We don't really determine what gas prices are. But so they said, okay, well, give us your brand new evaluation of it. And they're not.
Right. It's really interesting because I worked for the legislature for 20 years, and 8 of those years I worked for Bob Dutton, who represented Southern California's Inland Empire. And he wasn't a single issue guy, but one of his biggest issues was to take on CARB. And he got, not to extend things, but he got featured on by Dan Rathers when Dan Rathers was doing his own thing. And back then, my boss warned about the dangers of this unelected board and what the regulations would do to gas prices and how much they would harm the wallets of just the individual taxpayer. And let's fast forward 12 years, and it's completely come true. They're thumbing their nose not only at the legislature, but really at drivers of California. They don't care. They don't care what that's going to do to their wallet. They took down that estimate only because there was shock value.
Right.
And now the shock value will wear off once they implement it. It won't be true because they'll pass this next week, which today is October 28th. So I think they're meeting the day after the election, November 6th.
I think 2 days. I think it's the 8th they're meeting.
They're going to pass these rewritten regulations, and then there'll be some announcement, and it won't happen immediately. It'll happen in a couple months, like June, July next year. And magically, the legislature will just blame the oil companies on the increase. That's how this process has worked for 12 years or for 20 years. And that's how it's going to continue to work, sadly. We could tie in the special session they held. They wanted to lower gas prices. We have an unelected board that has announced they're going to raise gas prices. And what did the governor and the legislature do? Nothing. They spent $110,000 meeting. At least that's what they get paid in per diem. When you count the number of days they had to come back by the number of members, and that doesn't even include airfares that taxpayers had to pay to fly them up and back. And they'll just blame the oil companies. And that's the problem with this whole thing. They could stop it tomorrow. Governor Newsom has no intention to stop this board from raising gas prices.
Well, and the thing is, it's his board. Like I said, he appointed these members. He's got the ability to remove them if he wanted to today, replace them, or leave them empty for right now. And you're right. It seems like though this is just kind of a political theater. The thing I am thankful for is that you've got these reporters, as we mentioned, like Ashley, who have been going out there and really, raising questions, saying, okay, first of all, why aren't you speaking to the press as to what are your regulations going to do to motorists or people who have to use, have to fuel up their vehicles? Not only why aren't you talking to the press? Why don't you give us the documents to show how you derived at these numbers? And now, it's funny, now that the California Resource Board, they pulled down this report, said, okay, so if you pulled it down and you said that number is no longer valid, what are the new numbers? Where are the estimates? And the California Resource Board continues to refuse to provide them. Not only that, but after all this pressure, they finally, this past Friday, held a virtual quote unquote like press conference, but they didn't allow these reporters to record the whole thing, nor to publish the whole session, and they didn't provide the information that people needed. And so we're right back to square one, which is basically we're going to do what we want to do, and screw you. You don't get to see it. And
they all but said that. They literally all but said that. We're doing it because we can. They changed the word "we can" to we're following
state
directives.
law.
Yeah, state law. It's funny. Why don't any rewritten regulations ever lower prices? Why do they always I don't care if it's gas or building. California is in a state it's in because all of these regulations increase prices, all of them. And now people can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford gasoline. Next summer, the average price of gas is going to be $4.50 a gallon at the best gas station. Maybe higher. And I'm talking about if you want to sit in line at Costco with your Costco card to get the cheapest price. It's just it is nauseating to see what they do. And then the legislature, if they do anything, will act like they're stunned by what's taking place. They know they're just trying to push people out of automobiles, and whether that's to make them take public transit or change to electric vehicles. That's what they want. And they're doing everything they can. I'm just going to say it. They don't care if gas is $5, $6, $7 a gallon. All that means is great. We get more mass transit people, so we can fund more government operations.
Right, and it goes right back into the state center you work for. It really impacts. I mean, it impacts everyone, but it impacts really those people who have to live in more of these rural areas, or maybe who have to travel a little bit farther for where they live to where they go to work. I mean, because as you deal with inflation now, you deal with the cost of everything going up. Now you're going to add another, and the thing is, it's not Hector and Larry coming up with the 40 cents per gallon of gasoline or so forth. It is the board who is looking to implement this regulation, who came up with that amount. It is a state agency, and we know this, Larry. They're always underselling it by a bit because the shock price is a lot higher later on. It's kind of when you build a high-speed rail, said, no, it's probably going to cost about $10 billion. Well, it's now, I think that new price tag is about $120 billion into the cost. Right. Well, this thing's only going to cost you this much. Well, give it 2 years, and it's going to cost you this much more. And the same thing here.
I would just, does anyone think if we permanently raise the price of gas 50 cents a gallon, that it's going to make the cost of building a home cheaper? or more? Is it going to make groceries cheaper or more? Is it going to make anything we use cheaper or more? Because we all depend on it still. We still all use it. I took a walk this morning. My local gas station has gas prices dipped to three, and I'm using this word ridiculously because it is ridiculous, dipped to $3.99 a gallon. There was a couple of years ago, $3.99 was that shock value number where people were canceling vacations, canceling activities because they said they couldn't afford gas prices. Now, today, I took a walk and I celebrated seeing $3.99 a gallon, knowing that's just temporary. It'll shoot back up, and it's not oil companies causing this. If it was, it would be happening to the nation. It's happening only to California, just this state. You know, you don't hear people in Texas and in Tennessee, even Arizona, complaining about gas prices. Why? Because they're a lot cheaper.
Well, they're complaining about California gas prices because they're
Right.
or the shutting down of our refineries, because I mean that's impacting them. You know, they had that kind of, I know we're going back a little bit, but they had that special session, a couple of weeks ago, and the end result of the special session on, let's stick it to the oil industry. Well, a couple of days later, you have Phillips 66 that has decided to close down its operation, its refinery. So now we're down to 8 refineries in California, and so that all has an impact on gas prices. And the thing is that, and I know we've talked about it before, every single time that we import another barrel of oil from foreign countries, that comes with a $5 to $6 premium on it, because it costs money to transport it into the state of California, to ship it across the ocean. And so this, now you've got your gas prices, which are based, obviously on the cost of the fuel itself, the refining, but then there is the taxes that are implemented, and then there's the regulations. And this particular regulation will add, according to the California Air Resource Board, will add another 47 cents to the price of the gallon of gasoline. And some estimates are showing 47 cents to 66 cents. And the thing is, the worst part about this, and this is kind of why we're talking about it, I know it seems like we're going in circles, is that it's the regulators themselves who are not being honest or transparent with the information. They are not putting the information out there. They took down the report and said, well, don't even worry about that report. Those estimates, we're they're different. So reporters and everybody's like, so what are they? What are these new costs? And they're not putting it out there.
I'm going to push back a little bit, Hector. I think they've been extraordinarily transparent. They've been telling us for a year they're going to do this. We've just been ignoring it. I retired from the legislature January 1st. Last year in May, June, and July, Republicans started sending out letters, started putting stuff up on social media that this was coming, that this was happening. It actually took me back, working for a Republican office. I said, come on, they're just, this is politics at its best. They're pushing a scenario that's really not going to happen. Well, lo and behold, a year later, it is going to happen. So, and CARB, they were very transparent. They kept it right up there in front of our face, right on that website, until people started looking at it a month out from their actually voting on it, and said, what the heck is this? Then they pulled it down and said, never mind. You'll see. We're going to meet in November. You'll see. We're just following state directive. You'll see. No, they've been very clear. They're raising gas prices 40 to 60 cents a gallon next year.
Yeah, it's shocking. Well, we'll make sure that we provide everyone with the information. We'll put a link down below to the story from Ashley. So you guys can read it. And I recommend and I urge you, read the story, find out what's going on. There are ways that you can get involved. You can send in your letters. You can send in your comments. You can contact your state legislator and say, hey, you guys got to stop this. Now, this train has already left the station, and it is going out for a vote November 8th. But at the same time, the more you go out and start calling your state legislator, start calling your representative, the more hopefully they get involved themselves too, because I mean this is just gone beyond absurd.
The state legislature has the ability to override these regulations if they want to. No, despite it, they can override a veto of the governor if they're truly sincere about lowering gas prices and positively impacting drivers. Let's see what they do when they come back in January. You know, my guess is, and I hate to be a pessimist about this, Republicans are going to introduce legislation to try to undo this.
Mhm.
There might be one or two middle of the road Democrats that support it. So they'll scream that this is a bipartisan effort. And then at some point in mid-year, it'll die in a committee and we'll just live with these additional prices. Well, some people will cancel their vacations. We'll scream. But like you said, this train is rolling fast. And the only thing that can happen if they're serious is to introduce and pass legislation to undo these regulations.
Or the governor stepping in and just putting a stop to this. Yeah,
right.
He can.
By the way, they're just following the example of the governor. The governor has been the least transparent guy. I won't say ever because we too easily throw that word around. But like I said, I've been around the governor a lot in sitting in press briefings and things like that. He's an extraordinarily smooth talker. But this governor has been untruthful from before he was elected. And so there's no reason to believe what he'll say now. If our governor isn't transparent, if our governor doesn't hold press briefings, if our governor doesn't respond to the media when they call and ask questions, why should we expect an unelected board to be responsive media inquiries? They're just following their boss's lead.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I kind of wanted to switch a little bit. We are, I know we talked about, with CARB here, happening this on November 8th, a couple of days, but after the election. But I mean, we're about a week and a day away from this election, and it has gotten itself. It's you see it in the ads. I mean, this is a year where it is. I mean, aside from sports, I am watching just Netflix or other things because it is. I mean, it is just a constant barrage of ads coming into the television set. Going online and everywhere else. I mean, it is not just the presidential. You've got all these congressional races. You've got a lot of U.S. Senate races, and then you've got every local race out there. And so you've got quite a bit of noise happening nationally and everywhere else to the locals, to the ballot measures that they're fighting it out. I mean, how's this been around for your family right now?
It's interesting. We have a bit of a relationship with our my wife and I with our mail person. We chat with her when she delivers the mail. She's inundated with the amount of mail pieces she has to sort each and every day to get put in mailboxes. And you're right. If you watch regular television, virtually every commercial is political in nature. And I just would tell people to do your research and vote. Make your voice heard wherever you might stand. Vote. Wherever people might stand with, like Obama, one of his greatest lines is when he speaks at an event is when people start booing something, he'll stop them. He goes, "Don't boo, vote." And I would just echo that. Don't boo. If you don't like what you're seeing, vote. If you don't like gas prices going up, vote. If you don't like the direction something is going on your school board, vote. That is our chance to make a difference, not only in this nation but in our community. And I'm going on a bit of a rant. I dare say local elections are more important than presidential elections. What they do on your school board has more effect at your home than what a presidential election might do. Your city council has a lot of power in what gets built, where it gets built, how sidewalks and parks are handled. So vote. It's important.
I haven't. I'll do a quick search right now, but I haven't seen what is the estimate amount of money, because you're right, and I'll look it up right now just as we're doing this. Is what is the estimate amount of money that's going to be spent on this election? Because I remember a couple of years ago that number was about $1 billion, and everyone, I mean, it was an absolute shock just seeing that number. But I'll look it
Yeah,
up. Yeah,
great word, Hector. Shock. See, a couple of years ago, $1 billion for an election cycle shocked everyone. I'm betting when you look that number up, I'll bet it's twice that amount now. And people aren't shocked by the number of dollars being spent. People get rich putting out this stuff. So just
yeah,
vote.
yeah. You know what? It's funny because I'm looking at right now the FEC, and this is September. Congressional candidates collected $2.5 billion, and that's just congressional candidates.
There's
Um,
a local school board race. One of our former coworkers is running. The school board is made up of it's nonpartisan, but you kind of know what party the person is. It's right now a 4-1. I believe it's 4-1 split Democrat, and he's the lone conservative Republican, and they're spending a ton of money trying to make it a 5-0 school board. And that's the danger of not having balance. You know, look, people need to look at the issues, weigh it accordingly, and know that if you don't have balance, you're going to have unelected boards raising your gas prices 50 cents a gallon. That's because we don't have balance in the legislature. You know, it's what, um, uh, 31-9, 31
yeah,
Democrats, 9 senators. You know, when you have school boards that are 4-1 or 5-0, you're going to get imbalance. No matter
yeah.
where you might stand on an issue, there's going to be something that's going to shock you to your core that they're going to try to pass with that imbalance. You need us. We need balance, and people need to get out there and vote.
Oh,
If you,
I've got that number for you, Larry. You ready for this one?
yeah,
Open Secrets has it at $16 billion.
right. And by the way, I
16.
think I think it was less than 8 years ago. 1 billion was a shock value. Like, oh my God, $1 billion, $16 billion.
Yeah.
You know. And
Yeah.
by the way, most of it's inaccurate pieces they're putting out.
Yeah. Just the political action committees are, I'm reading this right here. Just the political action committees are expected to spend $5 billion. So yeah, you've got there's quite a bit of money there. Obviously, there's which goes back and translates right quite a bit of advertisement occurring. But yeah, just get yourself informed. Go out there and vote. Um, it's important to do. I remember when my mom was going through citizenship as my dad too. They had all these questions that they had to know, and just in case because they were going to get asked by when had to go through immigration officer. And one of them I always remember, it's what is the greatest gift? What is the greatest right given to you as a citizen? And the answer was the right to vote. And
Right.
so, I still remember that to this day. And I know my parents do, and they go out there and vote. But yeah, it is, there's a lot of money in this thing. But the important thing is, yeah, getting yourself out there, doing it. I mean, there's,
If you don't think it makes a difference, just 2 years ago, there was a state Senate seat in the Central Valley that was decided, I believe, by 13 votes.
yeah,
13 out of a couple 100,000 votes cast. Um, Votes make a difference, particularly when it gets down to the assembly, the state senate, your school board, your city council. It makes a difference. And if you don't vote, you're going to get the representation you didn't vote for.
and Larry, what is it? I talked to some of these folks, and because we're always trying to gauge, why people do vote, why people don't vote, and I'm very fascinated with the folks that choose not to, and a lot of it is they don't think politics isn't going to change. They're my vote doesn't matter. I don't know enough information about the candidates. I don't want to screw it up. I know for some of the immigrants that we've looked at focus groups, they're like, I don't. The process seems a little confusing or so forth. Um, but I'm also fascinated by those that wait until election day versus those that do early voting? Are you an early voter, or are you one of those?
Yes, I'm an early voter.
Yeah, same.
But
Same.
there's a segment of the population that likes going into the ballot on election day and casting their vote. There's that feeling of making a difference on that day, and I completely understand that. But get the process and vote, because I think a lot of people get to that day, and then it's 5 o'clock and they got off work and they go, it doesn't make it won't make any difference. No, it makes a difference.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going to. That there's a lot to say about, I mean, you remember right after right after the election, 2016, when you had President Trump going out there and talking about how their election fraud. There is, don't trust your vote by mail. And in 2020, there were states where there were battleground states. There were weather problems occurred, and there were a lot of people who just, I mean, if you're not going to go out in torrential rain and wait 2 hours to go cast a vote in some of these places where you had to wait that long.
Right.
And so it's interesting to see how the campaign has now changed its tune and basically said, turn them in early, cast, because you don't know what the weather's going to be like. You don't know what's going to happen. And so we've been seeing record number of people turning in their ballots, their early ballots, in North Carolina, in Georgia, a lot of these battleground states that we didn't see 4 years ago.
And the truth of the matter is, in California, up until 2020,
right,
early voting was a Republican advantage.
Right.
Candidates, particularly at the local level, had huge leads when the absentee ballots dropped at 8:05 on election night. And then we would have to see if we could hold on, because Democrats tended to vote on election day, where 25 or 30% of Republicans were voting by mail. That's kind of changed now with more people voting by mail. But yeah, it used to be a Republican stalwart in California. Get your vote in, get it counted. By the way, it's kind of too late for people, but the earlier you vote, the sooner those mailers stop hitting your mailboxes, because people don't want to pay to send you a mailer if they know you voted already. So that's one reason why I vote early, just to stop it.
That's true. It also stops the phone calls. It stops the the constant phone calls that we end up getting, because the way it's kind of funny. It's interesting the way the system is set up is, once you've cast your vote, then the registrar of voters shares that information, and so you've got these companies who are gathering all this information. Okay, no need to call Larry. No need to call Hector. They've already voted. So save your money and go after those that.
And they're updated every day.
Yeah.
So, and now it's turned into texting. If somehow you gave the Secretary of State your cell phone number, you not only get phone calls through your cell phone. I don't get them now because I cast my vote, but prior to the election, I was getting 3 or 4 or 5 text messages a day. From candidates. Vote. That's just the most important thing we can do. It's a privilege and it's a right, and we need to exercise it next Tuesday. Vote.
Yeah, that number now of early votes. This was a couple of days ago. That number from CBS News is showing that 32 million people have already voted so far. And that's the CBS got the information coming in from the University of Florida's election lab, and so they're showing quite a bit of an increase in people turning out to vote, even compared to what was just 4 years ago. And so, continue to get out there. I'd say if you can, get it in early, because you just never know what's going to happen on election day. I mean, life happens, and so.
Get out there. I mean, right. We don't know when the next catastrophe may be on its way. And that's what we're really talking about. Something significant happens, an earthquake,
Another hurricane, a weather storm,
exactly.
flooding. Yeah.
Even a heavy rainstorm where people are having to stand out, and you can only take so many people inside a voting center. And if the lines are long, you don't want people standing in these, these people tend not to want to stand in long lines. And we as conservatives may not have liked the rules that they're putting in place for voting, but in the end, we just need to cast our vote.
Yeah.
If we vote, we can make change.
Hey, Larry, I kind of wanted to switch a little gears up here. So, and I always love talking to you about this. So, how did the sports stuff, right? Just kind of a little break from life itself. So, how'd your team do this past weekend?
Man, I have to say, my Green Bay Packers are doing okay. They're 6-2 at this point. They play Detroit this Sunday, which is a crazy big game. Detroit is really a good football team.
Yeah.
So it'll be we'll see where they stand. And I'm not a big Jets fan because that's where Aaron Rodgers ended up, but they're kind of imploding. They're 2-6. They thought they had the roster built for a Super Bowl, and it doesn't even look like they're going to make the playoffs. There's things can change, but it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But anyone who's a football fan watched that Hail Mary by Washington last evening.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't a football fan, you probably saw it. So it's why we love sports, because of those sorts of moments. It's why we love sports when Freddie Freeman steps up to the plate with 2 out. And 2 on, I believe bases were loaded.
Bases loaded,
10th inning. First walk-off grand slam in the history of the World Series. Getting those calls from my friend that tell me how much they love me after that, because the Dodgers were able to pull out that win. So it's those moments that we love sports. So
yeah,
I know you have tickets to a potential Game 7. I'm guessing you'd rather have them win before Game 7. And
I'd rather have it just over and done with. That way, I'd stop the anxiety there. I know, which is I enjoy watching baseball. I mean, I did watch some NFL yesterday. I got to see, because of Amy, we got to see the 49ers play last night. That first half didn't seem very well against Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it was rough in that household because I'm surrounded by a bunch of 49er fans in there, and it was a rough household. And then they came back after, I don't know what speech or what words were exchanged in the locker room, but they came back in that third quarter. I mean, and here's the thing is, I think had there been maybe give it another 5 or 7 minutes more, I don't know if I tend to believe that maybe Dallas could have pulled it out there at the end. I mean, they came back in that fourth quarter and they seemed like a different team. The momentum shifted, and they just, was it that number 88, the receiver? I don't remember his name, but I mean,
CD Lamb.
Lamb. He was just on fire there at the end at the end.
He's a great receiver.
That guy for somehow was finding an open spot, on the field. He seemed to be by himself all the time, and so.
But in the end, the Cowboys are the Cowboys. I'm not a big Cowboys fan, so I'm never disappointed to see them lose, and to see Washington is in their division, and to see they have renewed. Their team is pretty good, so and along with Philadelphia, it's going to be an interesting season. So it's the best time of year. We have football going on. We have the World Series going on. The NBA started, so we get to watch the NBA. And if you're a hockey fan, hockey has started. So sports is it's the best time of year, sports.
Well, and I like this too. You've got for me too, you've got the weather's getting a little bit cooler. So now you can bring out the light jacket outside.
Yep.
You still, I mean, we're here in Sacramento, and so it can get cold, but right now it's that light jacket. It isn't the heavy one yet. And
Yep.
there's something about, in the evening you get the little crisp air. So I don't know. It's just like the cool
I don't.
air.
You know, I enjoy Fridays watching all the recaps of the high school football games that go on. It kind of
Yeah.
reminds you of when we were back in the day. I didn't play football, but going to football games and watching them. My wife's son went to UC Davis, so we still kind of follow UC Davis
Saturdays, yeah.
football.
Yeah.
And they're having a great year. That's not talked about a lot. They're 6-1. They're ranked
Wow.
number 5 in the FBS standing. So they're in line to have a good season, go to the playoffs, and maybe contend for a national championship this year. So a little shout out to UC Davis football and what they're doing.
Now, are they getting themselves? So they're in obviously different. What division are they in?
They're in what used to be called 1AA. Now
Okay.
it's called FBS Football Bowl Championship. So they have a lot of quality players.
Yeah.
They're not 5-star. They're what would be considered 3-star. Their only loss is to Cal, and they were leading at halftime. So they played with them for a while, and they did not get run. They didn't lose by a lot.
Yeah.
They're a quality football team, and Sac State is looking at moving up to the top division and joining what used to be the Pac-10. There's only 2 teams left in the Pac-10.
Well, and they played
And
this weekend, right? They gave the Pac-2, right? It was.
yeah,
I think it was Oregon State and Cal played this weekend. I think it was.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looks like they're going to join. They're going to infuse they're going to build a new stadium that's state of the art. That's going to seat 30,000, and they're going to move up to top level football. So Sacramento has a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
When it comes to any level of sport that you want to participate or watch. And I
Do you think-
I like that cool weather. That
Yeah.
little fall crispness means football's in the air.
Now, do you anticipate UC Davis maybe looking to move up, or do you think they'll stay where at the level they're in right now? Because you're right, I have been seeing quite a bit of they're looking to reconfigure the Pac-12. Bringing a lot, obviously a lot of different teams, and for Sac State, they're going to have to build a stadium. I think not just a football stadium, but also like an arena, right, for basketball.
Correct, but
Yeah,
the Kings owner has already stepped up and said if they move up to that division until they build their own facility, they can play at Golden One. So they have a place to play right away.
Wow.
College sports is different now with paying play, with the NIL, name and likeness, players get money. So I guess Sac State has claimed they have been able to get a commitment of something like $50 million so they can pay players. Because if you move up to that level, if you don't get some 5-star athletes, you're not going to be very competitive. And it's one thing to move up. It's another thing to be competitive.
Yeah.
Sac State, for example, is very competitive at the top level of baseball. Very competitive. Davis is very competitive in a lot of in basketball. They've made the NCAA a couple times. The women's basketball team is very competitive and makes the NCAA tournament. So I don't know if UC Davis, their football program will move up, but I'd rather see them stay where they're at and just compete. Those players end up now with the way college sports is set up. They'll end up, a couple of those players will end up at Alabama next year or Michigan or Ohio State because they have a great sophomore year and they can go get some money playing at another college. I don't know if I like it, but it's kind of like politics. It's what's set up now, and either you're going to take advantage of it or you're going to get rolled over by it.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I know we've talked about it before, the ins and outs of the NIL, and having to set that whole thing up. Yeah, it's fascinating. You look at a region of California. Several years back, you had the Rams, the Chargers in Los Angeles. Obviously, they're utilizing the same stadium. You had a movement of teams, of sports teams in that area. I think you've seen, and mind you, while it's temporary, you've got a movement of teams here in Sacramento where, yeah, we've got this new arena for the Kings, but now you've got the A's that are going to be playing out of Sacramento for a while they're building out the stadium over in Las Vegas. And now you've got, Sac State that is looking to move itself up Pac-12. And so you got a building of two stadiums there, one not just the basketball, but also the football stadium. And so interesting in all these different movements happening in sports, just locally.
By the way, if it's successful, everyone gets something out of it. We'll have more hotels, we'll have more restaurants because, when Ohio State comes to town to play Sac State, Ohio State travels well. And so they'll sell out all the hotels in the area. The restaurants will get filled up. Game night for the Kings, all the restaurants are packed. So, everyone wins when you get a successful move up to that sort of division. And so, I'm rooting for Sac State to do it and pull it off and be competitive. Wouldn't you love to see Ohio State roll into town to play Sac State in a meaningful football game?
Yeah,
that would be interesting to see.
I would, and the thing is, even it's even like when you watch the games over in SoFi, and I sometimes I wonder who's really the home team, right? I watch the games over, just watching this weekend. You've got the Raiders, we're playing Kansas City,
Kansas
and
City.
There was
it was a Kansas City crowd in Las Vegas, and that's why Las Vegas loved getting the Raiders. It wasn't because that was a Raiders city. It was because every team, whether it's Kansas City or Green Bay or the Giants, they travel well to those cities, and they just take the stadium over.
It's vacation. Yeah, you got a weekend vacation you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Chargers down in Los Angeles. It gets taken over by whatever team they're playing. They don't really, sadly, they don't really get home games.
Yeah.
They're playing all on the road because crowd noise is always on the favor of whoever the opposition is.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how this whole thing turns out, Larry. Until next time, we'll probably do something right after the election. It'll have to be probably the day after because, as you were mentioning, on Thursday I am on a flight and I'm going to Columbus, Ohio. I'm going to watch Ohio State. I'm taking some time off, but watching Ohio State play Purdue at the Horseshoe. So off to the Larry. Yep.
So maybe someday you can go dot the I.
There you go.
So have a good day, Hector.
You too. Bye.